What's up, guys? How we doing? Wednesday link on a Thursday.
There you go.
It's the summer, so sometimes it's different scheduled. But Thomas here. How's it going?
Going well. Yeah, a little Thursday afternoon, Wednesday link. As you said, it's the summer, and so not like we have to react to breaking news. We try to do all that on Wednesdays during the season because we'll get press conferences and practices and stuff like that. And so obviously we try to keep the Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m., but I was busy last night. We moved here. Not much going on in terms of breaking news, but plenty of training camp, previews and stuff like that. And a lot of players that you and I have been talking about who could be gearing up for a pretty interesting offseason. So I'd go ahead and talk about it.
Yes, there's plenty of those, and we'll get into all the players. By the way, shout out to everybody in the chat, as always. Make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully your summers are going well. In fact, feel free. Let us know where you're listening from, or maybe better input here is let us know where you would prefer to be listening from. Any summer vacation plans, or just hopeful, wishful thinking. We kind of got ours out of the way earlier for the last couple weeks, but I'm just curious, because we have somebody from Germany. I don't know if that's actually a summer destination. I believe that's just where they're located.
Probably where they're at. Yeah.
I'm always curious. It's fascinating to see where people are listening from. So, go Birds. They've had some stuff going on within OTAs, as you mentioned, Thomas. We could really go all over the place here, but as we title it here, which Eagles players could surprise people, could surprise you this season. I mean, you could take your pick on really offense or defense, regardless, rookies or veteran players or guys that are kind of on the bubble. I think just first off to start out, and you talked about this very recently, we've had a number of different conversations along these lines, but Moro Ojomo for the defensive tackle position, and maybe it's not even a full-blown surprise people, or at least not Eagles fans in the know, but surprise people around the league. Like, that dude was coming on late and playing next to Jalen Carter. If he's getting more snap count there, he's taking that next step. Everyone talks about in the building in terms of his IQ ability, or his football IQ as well, on top of the ability that we see. So I just, wouldn't surprise. That's all we're saying. Would not surprise us, but it might surprise a lot of people around the league.
Well, I think that's the main factor. Right? I think Philadelphia Eagle fans who watch our show, they know Moro Ojomo is kind of the dark horse candidate going into 2025. I mean, literally, if you were to poll, I think most of our viewers to say, give us somebody that's a true dark horse, not like, Quinyon Mitchell is going to be even better in year 2. Like a true dark horse, it'd be Moro Ojomo. Outside of the league, Josh, no one has any idea who this guy is. Like, zero idea. When we talk about league-wide dark horses, you have to have somebody that no one else, all 31 teams, don't know who he is. And then by the end of the 2025 season, everybody knows who Moro Ojomo is. And that, to me, seems like a real trajectory here heading into training camp based on what we're hearing, is that the step from year 1 to year 2 was massive, but the step from year 2 to what's coming in year 3 is going to be incredible. I mean, the guy had 0 sacks last year, yet he had one of the best pass rush win rates of any interior defensive tackle in the entire league, like 19%. And there's a great breakdown. I forget who it was. I put it on my show yesterday, just kind of diving into all the pressures that Moro Ojomo had that almost resulted in sacks last year. And big factor, Josh, is he's great. He's elite. He's fast, twitchy, great size. Met him in person. He's huge. But playing alongside Jalen Carter does this to people, Josh. And we're going to get a very interesting look at what Milton Williams looks like, with Jalen Carter in 2024. You fantastic. Really good. Highest paid free agent this entire offseason. That's what he looks like without Jalen Carter. And I don't think he's going to stink, but there will be a decline. And whether Moro Ojomo is an elite player or not, you can become an elite player and have elite stats when Jalen Carter is literally doubled and the only focus an offensive line has for every single snap. I mean, 70, 80, 90 snaps. Remember, you want him to play going forward. Moro Ojomo is going to have one-on-one versus the worst offensive lineman for every single team, every single snap, every single game. And I mean, it's right there for the taking. If you want to go ahead and make a ton of money this year, Moro Ojomo, maybe they sign him to an early contract. Probably not. But still, only got a 4-year deal because he's a 7th-round draft pick. Now's your chance to do it because, I mean, it is wide open for Moro Ojomo to go crazy.
Totally is. For all the points that you just mentioned there. And talking to Brandon Graham, BG mentioned that on the interview yesterday as well. And he was saying the similar parts of, I'm telling you, Moro Ojomo, keep an eye out for him. You play next to Jalen Carter. It's a team aspect. You can't be great without the greatness of others. We understand that. But there's elements in it that, hey, you play next to the bread man, and life is a million times easier. So you have him, Jalyx Hunt, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis. Hey, he's got the extension there, or the picked up the option. So I'm excited about this pass rush. I think that some people understand, like, well, we might need to add somebody. Maybe Howie will. Maybe there'll be some depth there. But there's a little bit
Right.
more than I think people are giving credit for, including Azeez Ojulari, Josh Uche. They're being called out by vets like Lane Johnson for a reason. So just, don't be sleeping on them.
Does it feel like we have too many? And that's not me complaining, obviously, because there have been plenty
Sure.
of seasons where we've not had enough. But you start to kind of go down the list of just the entire defensive line, right? Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Moro Jomo, and obviously Thomas Booker, who people seem to like. That's 4 right there that will make the roster. You also have another defensive tackle they drafted in the Vanilla Gorilla Ty Robinson. That's 5 defensive tackles. That's not counting all these edge rushers. Nolan Smith, Jalyx, Uche, obviously Ojulari, and then you have a bunch of other younger guys as well, people that they brought in. Antoine Par-Ryland, you got him on the thumbnail here, who, what are they going to do, cut him? Like, they feel very strongly about him. It does kind of feel like somebody's going to get cut that we don't expect. Like, maybe Uche's the guy, Ojulari's not. Maybe Ojulari's the guy, Uche's not. Are they both going to make the roster? You would think. But they have a lot of young guys, too, who they've invested draft capital in, who maybe, again, I'm just picking on somebody here. I have no idea if Ojulari is going to be great or not. Let's say he's not. Do you want to make Ojulari on the squad if he's going to be your 4th best pass rusher and give you 3 sacks this year over a Par-Ryland who you invested a draft pick in and you don't truly know what he is even as rookie year progresses? That could be something to keep an eye on as training camp gets going here because they have so many people, which is crazy because, again, I always talk about the golden age of Philadelphia Eagle fandom on these live streams, and because we're in it right now. But just think back to 2019. Just think back to 2020. They had 0 depth. There's like BG, and that was it. And now it's like, okay, well, is our 5th best guy as good of a 2nd best guy? Where is he going to fit in the roster? It's pretty crazy to think about, but they got to cut a lot of people here, and there are going to be some names where you go, oh, wow, I'm shocked that person got cut, and another team goes ahead and scoops him up.
Oh, completely. Yes. And I mean, like you're asking, do we have too many? Kind of. You look at play. We could do that for the wide receiver position. We could do it for a number of positions because, okay, who's going to make the roster? Who's not? Are you able to sneak them onto the practice squad? Things like that. But I mean, shout out to Anthony DeBona, his guy, Antoine Par-Ryland, APR. He called him before the draft even. And so he's like, man, I really hope that he stays on the team, obviously, because it's his guy and he had high hopes for him. We'll see. He's, as you're talking about, there's a lot of guys that are in the way of like, okay, this competition is a good thing. They love the rotational pass rush. You can't have too many guys, but is he more of that, like, all right, you stash him somehow, like maybe he makes the roster, or you figure out this phantom injury that we saw that was, Nia Smith late, and all right, hey, because it does feel like you would probably get at least 1, if not 2. Oh, well, hey, we didn't hear much about an injury there. The media didn't appear to be present when something happened, but all of a sudden, okay, well, Anaya Smith is on the IR because of the ankle injury, or the calf injury. So maybe Cameron Williams. I know there's been a lot of speculation as far as the tackle position goes. Very raw talent, but a lot of athleticism, lots of potential that Jeff Stoutland and the Eagles see. So, you do that maybe there. APR feels like one of those guys that if he were to be like, you're like, man, we like him. But he's very much a pass rush specialist. I think that the more that you look at his film, the more that we break it down, you see so far. And again, it's first year rookie, so everybody has to learn. But very much a pass rush specialist. And I'm not, dare I go for like comparisons of Bryce Huff, because people are going to be like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. I'm not saying that he's a Bryce Huff or that it's going to be a flop to that extent, but we've seen if in a Fangio system, if it's too much of all he is a pass rush specialist, then maybe you give him a little bit of time. Maybe he doesn't end up earning those reps, because Azeez Ojulari does have film out there as far as backing off in coverage. Fairly decent. Josh Uche has a little bit of that. Fairly decent. Even Fangio talked about the ability that he has and that he's noticed so far. So if they have even a little bit more of it, maybe there's some comfortability and you go, all right, they may win out, but try to keep this dude around because, who knows, this guy may be the limit for this guy. 22 and a half, 25 sacks over the last 2 years, or his final 2 years in college. Just game wrecker.
Well, you have practice squad spots too, and there's no reason you can't put a 7th rounder on the practice squad. Philadelphia's done that before. I just looked it up right now. Philadelphia kept 6 outside linebackers or edge rushers, if you will, this previous season. And then, of course, they moved people around. Remember, Patrick Johnson eventually was not on the roster, became a New York Giant. And so they really had 5 on the roster. They have 7 currently on the 90-man roster as listed edge rushers. You want to move someone around like Jihaad Campbell's an inside linebacker, but they have 2 spots that are going to need to get waxed. Defensive tackles, they kept 1, 2, 3, 4. They kept 6 as well. And so maybe you could have somebody be a hybrid and be listed as a defensive tackle, or keep 1 less defensive tackle and an extra outside linebacker. And so, they're not going to cut somebody if they think he can play. And maybe they all can play, and then eventually somebody's got to be the odd man out. But if they truly think that Par-Ryland can eventually play as a young player, they're going to keep him on the roster. And so, we're going to see what happens. But I think expectations for all these guys, Josh, I don't know. It's something that I thought about doing a show on. I did kind of a show on it yesterday, and I want to ask your thoughts on people not being overhyped, but having a lot of pressure. Like, I think Ty Robinson, for instance. I mean, he is the polarizing guy on this defense right now that is not named Cooper DeJean, Zach Bond, or Quinyon Mitchell, it feels like. Like, he is so ahead of where you would normally put a defensive tackle drafted in his round on the list of players to watch going into training camp. Like, we all expect him to be this stud, this star. And again, I've done multiple shows on him. The tape says he's going to be great. The additional time at Nebraska, the size of, everything's great. But it's like, are we putting a little bit too much pressure on Ty Robinson to contribute year one when we've seen really good players in Philadelphia the past couple of seasons be drafted way higher and do nothing in year one? Nolan Smith. It's an interesting thought.
It is. It's interesting you bring that up. Actually, real quick before I answer that too, so people are asking here, and shout out to all those that are saying where they're watching it from. Some people being in Cancun in a few weeks. I did ask the question of where they are. Other people watching from their lunch break. I don't know where that is necessarily, but we appreciate you guys. However you
West
watch
Coast,
and stream
maybe?
the show.
West Coast?
Could be great, yeah. Also, I have no clue what the top fans things is exactly. It's some sort of point system that gives people crowns and numbers, I guess, based on comments and I don't know what it is. So it's not something that we have set up personally. It's a YouTube thing, so I just wanted to reference that because I got a couple of questions. Going back to your comment, though, for Ty Robinson, yes. I made a video like 2 days after they drafted him, saying he's the most underrated pick in the NFL draft. So I'm probably not helping towards the hype and the pressure and everything else of being like, hey, take a look on this guy.
We're definitely not.
But at the same time, he's going in here, and much like we said, Moro Jomo. Now I get that Big Mo's got more time and having played at the NFL speed, getting used to the game, acclimation, all that. So there's everything that you can throw at it. But Ty Robinson was used to and is used to taking on the double teams and getting more of the focus. Now it's at college level. Totally understand that. But was used to it. Now he's going to be playing next to Jalen Carter. And if he gets that opportunity, we've said the same thing. It's like, okay, look, Ty Robinson, you're going to get the worst blocker. Now it's going to be an NFL level, like a guy is in the NFL that you're blocking. But you will get the worst pass blocker or the worst interior offensive lineman on the team. If you were on the field and Jalen Carter's on the field, it'll be Jalen Carter's going to get 2 guys. You're going to have the lesser of the pick. And so if that's the case, I think there's opportunities. And we also can't just be like, well, it's impossible for a rookie to go out there and have something. I'm totally with you that there's pressure, but even Braden Fisk, and people go, oh, well, he's not the same. I'm not saying that. I'm saying from the stance of a rookie to go out there and make some plays. He could be a game. He could have crazy number of sacks. He could just capitalize so much on, well, JC's getting all the attention, and I just go through and beat this, lesser of the talent on the offensive line and go make plays. But I still, yes, the notion that you're talking about there, is there a ton of hype? Absolutely so. I see some here in the comment section. I've seen some others in videos previously of like, oh my gosh, Jalen Carter and Ty Robinson, Nolan Smith, Jalyx Hunt. That's not going to be the starting lineup. Like it just won't be. There will probably be instances where those are the 4 linemen on the field. But as we have both said a number of times, it's going to be Jordan Davis and it's going to be a lot of Moro Jomo. Those 2 are going to get more so. Maybe Ty Robinson, if he begins to, live up to that hype and start making plays, sure, then maybe he may get more playing time than what we're anticipating. But at the current moment, if you're like, okay, hey, what are we talking about snaps-wise per game? 10? Like, I don't really think we're going any higher than 10 at this point.
Right.
Maybe he earns more. But again, Jordan Davis was about 20. Conditioning-wise, you would think that's about 20 for him. and then another 30, 35 or so for Moro Ojomo, and then you've only got, I mean, probably 5 or 10 remainder for all the guys, Thomas Booker, or who else do you want to throw out there? So
Yep.
we'll see. But yes, there's definitely a lot of pressure on him. I don't know how necessarily, and we've talked about this one before also, but Cooper DeJean, everyone's dubbed him even as far back as last season, the best
Yes.
slot corner in the NFL. You
Yes.
can't get better than that. So is it too much pressure at this point to go like the first time he gets burned on something, goes, oh my gosh, what's wrong with Cooper DeJean, right? Like, so there's even some of those elements too of the guys that we know are proven or a lot more proven, but they go out there and if they have one mistake, is it unrealistic expectations?
Well, I actually talked about this on my show because I was doing people that might have a little bit too much pressure. They're make or break candidates. And I threw Cooper DeJean in there and I prefaced it. I was like, this is not because I think Cooper DeJean is going to be bad. I just think that Cooper DeJean went from, we talked to the Eagle people behind the scenes when we were at the NovaCare complex about this very thing. It's like the meteoric rise of Cooper DeJean is really the blueprint to becoming an NFL star that's a non-skill position, a non-quarterback, a non-wide receiver, non-running back. From nobody to superstar in year one. Like, it is the blueprint. We forget that this time last year, Cooper DeJean was coming off a good OTA, and he was good at OTAs, but still, the focus was on Quinyon Mitchell because DeJean was a second-round draft pick, didn't know where he was going to play. DeJean gets hurt immediately in training camp, but we don't see him. Like, I remember, I have all my footage kind of chronicled in my hard drive, and I'm looking for Cooper DeJean training camp footage. There is none. I mean, because the guy basically didn't play in training camp until that final preseason game where he actually didn't have that great of a preseason performance in pass coverage. A couple of nice stops up front against the Vikings, but not a lot in terms of on the backside in that game. Then he basically doesn't play until after the bye week. I mean, the one main Cooper DeJean memory I have from those first 5 weeks is his muffed punt return where Jihaad Dotson runs into him against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That was it.
Yeah.
Like, that was the only Cooper DeJean we really talked about. Then he has that, patented stop on 4th down against Jamar Chase. And then you just started building and building. It's a much better showing against the Rams a couple of weeks later. Tackling of Derrick Henry. But then going into the Super Bowl, Josh, that pick 6 has vaulted him into superstar territory. And I think that there is a real kind of thing to be not worried about here or, concerned, but DeJean is, I'm sure, is worried about it. I'm not worried about it, but thinking about it now, there's a lot of pressure there. He's got a top podcast. He went from like 50,000 followers on Instagram to over 1 million. He's getting all these media requests. He is the it dude in Philadelphia right now. He's also a young, good-looking single guy. I'm sure he's getting all the DMs he could possibly want. I mean, he's the king of Philly right now, Josh. And you just got to sit back and wonder, okay, I mean, take it up. He got to improve a little bit going into next year because everybody's going to expect it. But the good news is, if he improves by 5%, I mean, based on what he did last year, especially in the playoff run, the guy's going to be an absolute stud and just continue to grow this legend into a household name. He'll be the Troy Polamalu, the Philadelphia Eagles, if he continues to go ahead and grow, and I totally think he will. It's just a lot of pressure for a 21, 22-year-old guy that probably had no clue he'd be in this situation even if he had a decent first year.
Yeah, I don't think that he figured he'd be getting mobbed as people see in the Ocean
video,
Drive at
yes.
Seattle City.
Yes. He's the Philadelphia
He
Eagle right
he
now.
is.
I mean,
Yeah, I love his reaction though too. He's like, you
Yes.
just got to get out of here because there's so many
Just gotta
people,
get outta here.
and he totally embraces it. Not that I don't think he's
course he
like
does.
done with it, but yeah, it's got to be a lot, and you can see that there. I mean, most times it's a Cooper DeJean is at any moment it's going to be a sold out crowd. People like, oh yeah, let's get there. So all the Eagles, obviously very good cause. So if you're looking to support, by the way, because it's supporting the Eagles Autism Foundation there, you can do that at the Eagles Autism site. You can donate at any time, but a fantastic cause as we've been a part of, taken part, gotten to attend, obviously the NovaCare Complex and others. But yeah, I'm excited to see what Cooper DeJean does. I'm interested for the experiment in itself.
Yep.
He's checked every box. He's lived up to the expectations as we're talking about
100%.
the hype. There was a slower build, granted, as you're referencing and kind of going through with the hamstring injury that he suffered. But you could almost see it from OTAs even of Vic Fangio does not usually throw so much at rookies unless he trusts them. And then you're going like, man,
Right.
why? Coop is playing in the slot. He's playing a little bit outside. He's getting all these reps. They're also putting him at punt returner. Like, they believe a ton in this dude's football ability. He's a football player. And so then, you're like, all right, well, now he's going to get to start. I didn't expect this. I thought he would be good. Did not expect it as quickly. For him to end the Super Bowl on his birthday, picks it like it's a Cinderella story. Like it's just fantastic. It doesn't get any better than that. But now we go into year 2, and I'm very curious because OTAs is always those limited glimpses of like some dude can look fantastic, and you can say a little bit in training camp, but not as much so. OTAs, some dude can look fantastic, and you might get a look and you're like, wow, that's gonna happen, and it doesn't. Training camp, little bit different story. You start to get the, hey, well, Cooper DeJean is playing at corner, and he's first team corner, and he continues to be first team corner and not slot.
Right.
Then you start to go, well, okay, so something's maybe different, wrong with Kelee Ringo. Maybe they don't believe in it there, feel better about Cooper DeJean. Or they've got this experiment going, which they've talked about, like, okay, corner, slot, safety even perhaps. I don't know that I'm necessarily going there, but he's just so good. They have to get him out there on the field. So I'm trusting the Eagles. I think Fangio knows what he's doing, obviously. So does Christian Parker. But I'm very curious to see where Cooper DeJean ends up, or if it's just this hybrid role throughout the season. You're kind of like, he's kind of roaming, like he'll be all over the place. He can play all 3 positions.
Well, just to be clear, like I think both of us are not saying that we expect Cooper DeJean to be bad or that he's going to take a step back.
For sure.
Just basically pointing out that if we're talking about players who are under pressure, DeJean has a lot of extra pressure based on the stardom that he built. All signs are pointing to Cooper DeJean becoming a superstar in the National Football League. I mean, like we just said, there wasn't a better blueprint to go from nobody to somebody in the NFL, not named a quarterback or a wide receiver, than DeJean had. And Vic Fangio giving him all of these different, signs of trust, or what I call them. Safety, nickel, corner, those are all very different positions with a lot going on up here, especially if he has to make changes in the middle of a game. I mean, if he goes, all right, in the 4-3 defense, you're going to be, a safety, and then when we go to nickel, you're going to be the nickel guy, and then dime, that's a lot to ask a second-year player, and we keep saying this about Vic Fangio and why we love him so much. Vic Fangio does not care who you are. Literally, if Jalen Carter was struggling, do you think Vic Fangio would play him 78, 88, 98% of defensive snaps? 0% chance.
No chance.
He does not care. If Thomas Booker is playing better than Jalen Carter, Thomas Booker would be out there. Same goes for Cooper DeJean. If Cooper DeJean was struggling going into year 2, or was struggling at the end of last year, they would have slid Avonte Maddox in there and not even batted an eye. They would not have cared because it's Vic Fangio. And now, I don't know about you, but Vic Fangio has, the longest leash possible. I remember going into last year, it was like, okay, Vic Fangio, okay, we had one of his disciples in Sean Desai. I don't know. Maybe that system's washed. He just came from Miami. They hated him. His leash was pretty short. It was like, fingers crossed this old guy still got it. Now, Vic Fangio has run-of-the-mill. He can do whatever he wants. It's one of those, like, auto leashes that just keeps giving, leeway, because he can go as long as he wants, because he just shut down Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl and didn't blitz a single time. And so he can do whatever he wants, and that's playing any guy he wants. And the fact that he wants Cooper DeJean out there is the biggest stamp of approval that anybody could possibly give. Way more than you and me being like, yeah, I think he can do it. It's like, no, Vic thinks he can do it. And if Vic thinks you can do it, you definitely can do it.
Yeah, he can be with the Eagles until he retires. There's no doubt. Like he said that he wants to, but I think he's already got that blank check of, okay, just let us know. You tell us when you're done. Cool. Otherwise, you just stick around. All the sound bites. You got the right guys who are buying into that. Also, yes, Miami was ready to run him out of town. They practically did. And they didn't have the players that necessarily want to be coaches hard. They didn't want to have to stick around in the building. Now, where it's not to the full extent, because I know some people saw the Kendall Lamb statement that was made up or taken out of context. It was very strange because I'm not going to name specifically. I don't want to throw people under the bus because everyone makes mistakes. But a beat writer who had attributed it to ESPN, and it was not a quote that he actually said about the Miami culture being terrible. But, we've read between the lines. It is a very believable statement. So when that first came out, I was like, oh, right. I would totally believe that. I would totally buy that. And so anyway, not long story short, but Kendall Lamb did not say that specifically, but we've heard from other players at Miami publicly. Andrew Rosenhaus, who's an agent for several of those, that's like, yeah, some guys in the building don't necessarily care for Fangio. Different side of the ball, naturally, with Lamb. But I was just looking at this too, because you did mention and just another to the greatness of Vic Fangio. But shutting down Mahomes, I mean, worst performance for Mahomes in any game, I would say. I mean, certainly all the way up through the third quarter. But again, you go back to last year's schedule, you end up shutting down or really confusing, causing problems for Jordan Love. You did the same thing for after that in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow. Did the same thing for Jacksonville. Now, that was a little bit of a closer game towards the end, but for the vast majority of that one, same thing for, I mean, Dallas, but those were just a shell of their offenses, but still. And even Jaden Daniels. Now, they got the win in the second game, but there was the injury with Hurts and the offensive rhythm and flow. Like, that one looked like it was going to be just a runaway until the injury and kind of the momentum shifted there. But there's a lot of quarterbacks you go back to. Lamar Jackson, you get the win there, shut that offense down. I mean, how great the defense was able to keep him contained. So it's a night and day difference from the schematic point, even though it's like you mentioned, the Sean Desai disciple that was the previous year. Try to hold things together, even the Jonathan Gannett, but it's not the same as we've seen with Vic Fangio and being able to teach these players who are willing to learn. So, I'm excited about it. I know there's a reason that everybody is. Also, shout out to Kevin, who is listening from northern New Hampshire. I saw that comment. Anthony with two bomb. Appreciate that, Anthony. Have a multiple of these, by the way. Let me get to these super chats. Anthony says, APR, Antoine Par-Ryland makes the roster outright. Phantom toe coming up. Okay.
Phantom toe is like a phantom toe for another player to that way he gets a roster spot. Is that?
I assume
that's
what he's meaning.
I think that's what he means.
He makes it outright, so you stash another guy.
And listen, Antoine Par-Ryland is somebody that there just wasn't a lot of news on during OTAs because they don't have pads on, right? So we talked about Ty Robinson because he looked the part. Powell-Ryland didn't get drafted because got drafted so late, in the very, very, very end of the 7th round, because he doesn't look the part. He's a little small. And so when you don't have pads on, and you're not physically hitting each other, and you're not, going against Lane Johnson one-on-one at full speed with pads, it's really hard for us and people who are actually at practice to be like, ooh, ATP looks looks really good. I mean, this is going to be the guy. When we get to training camp, we're going to know real quick, very quick, and especially in preseason games, Josh, because he's going to be going up against the opposing team's 3rd best tackle, 4th best tackles that won't even make the roster. He has a legit runway to just dart onto the stage and take a roster spot. And again, the same thing we mentioned at the top of the show, Azeez Ojulari is getting paid the highest of any free agent this offseason, but it's still nothing. Josh Uche is getting paid literally nothing. And you're telling me if they're the same at training camp, the same skill, if you can't differentiate, they're going to go with the guy they just drafted who's making even less money and on a rookie contract than an aging veteran 20 times out of 10 times, because that's how the NFL works. And so his chance is 100% there. At worst, he's going to be a practice squad guy. At worst.
Yep. You get the longevity of it, like you mentioned, too. So, and by the way, 6th round pick, I've said 7th round multiple times as well, but I know the Eagles, the way the picks fell, I've kept going, that was the last one for them, but it was technically the 6th round. So I saw some comments there. Anthony with 2 more says, ride tie 95 at your own risk. Get your seatbelts. Ride tie 95. I haven't heard tie 95. I've heard the Vanilla Gorilla. Tie 95 is that the nickname.
At our own risk sounds like it's a bad idea to ride and be a fan of his. Is that what he means?
I think it's more hype though, isn't it? Because he's given him the nickname of I-95, but tie 95.
Yeah.
I can't read that 100%.
Abandon him at your own risk, as if you're saying I wouldn't,
that's true.
Beat on him early, but no. Listen, everyone is a Vanilla Gorilla fan. We're just saying that he has so much more hype than any 3rd, 4th, 5th rounder in recent Eagle history. Think back to all the 3rd, 4th, and 5th rounders. I guess Sidney Brown had a lot of hype, but they had people established in front of him. Who else? I'm trying to remember. I got to go back into the Eagles draft classes and think of some middle round guys who have been similar. I mean, last year, Will Shipley and Smith, they didn't have that much hype. I guess Jeremiah Trotter Jr. kind of did, but no one really thought he was going to actually win the job. Yeah. Obviously, mentioned Sidney Brown. I guess Ringo had a lot, but they still had established corners in 2023.
I was going to say Nakobe Dean had a lot of hype. He was the fall, and then he lost the job to TJ and Kaiser.
Kayvon Wallace in 2020 had a lot. He had a lot.
Yeah,
because it was Clemson. He had the visor. He eventually turned out to be, I think he's a starter with the Titans. He's a good player now. But he had a lot of hype. And then I'm trying to look back further in history. That's basically it. I mean, Josh Sweat had a lot of hype, but Josh Sweat was a good player. So,
Sure. Yeah.
This is the most hyped mid-round pick in recent Eagle history since I would probably say Kayvon Wallace.
Okay. We'll see if he can live up to it. I mean,
we'll see.
You know,
I hope he does.
I
Obviously,
think he could do a little better. Let's just say that. Just a little bit.
Definitely a little better. Definitely a little better. But people
yes,
love the Vanilla Gorilla.
Yeah. It's very
Maybe
easy
it helps. It helps to have a cool nickname, though. I think that makes a big difference in terms of name recognition and where fans are at this point in your very, very infantile career.
He's got that going for him. The other part, you could look at this as a positive or negative, so I can see it both ways.
Sure.
But the age factor with Ty Robinson, he's coming in. He's an older player because he stayed, I think it was, 6 years in college, if I'm not mistaken. So coming into that, there's one element where I think he could be one of those that does make a bigger impact a lot quicker because he doesn't need, he's NFL strong. He could show up. He could just start making plays. He's incredibly smart. I mean, he was wanting to be a doctor after his NFL career. So to have that level of, just the insight and being able to kind of be analytical, break things down, see things before they happen. Very high IQ, as people have praised him for. Matt Rule, his coach, his former football coach there, who was at Baylor when we were at Baylor. So shout out to Matt Rule.
Nice guy.
Tons of praise as well to Ty Robinson, saying Philly's going to love this dude. So I think that helps him to be able to make some plays. Again, the reverse or the counter argument at that, though, is but he's older. So if he takes a little bit of time, it may be a shorter leash to go, well, okay, we're not just going to hang on to this forever because this guy's getting older quickly. But I'm excited about it. There's a reason why we've got a lot of this hype. Anthony with 2 more. Anthony killing it with the Super Chats. We
lots of questions. Yes.
Says it's defensive back Cooper, so we don't go with a specific position.
Probably
defensive back Cooper,
Probably
and then back of plane with the loot. LOL. Back of plane with the loot.
I guess he's stealing money, like he's going to be that good.
So.
I don't know. Whatever that means.
There's some good, interesting takes here, and I can't fully understand the. I didn't get the last one of whether it was a positive or was it a negative for Ty Robinson either.
I saw one that said Cooper DeJean is equals Brian Chalkins, which I think is pretty funny. That was a good one there from Cody English. So I've not heard anyone say that, but yeah, 100%.
Gotta love it with the chat. The chat always crushes it with nicknames and different takes and everything. It's that's good. I like that. They
always do. Andy Perry says Ty 95, I-95, dangerous highway. It's pro Ty. There you go. So it is pro Ty. So you're correct.
Okay.
It was, we were wondering, but it's pro Ty. As is everybody. There's no one out there that's anti-Ty Robinson right now. You got to be a real hater. Maybe Thomas Booker, because you might take a little bit of snaps from him. But Booker was one of those guys that, if he's not playing on this roster, he probably gets a little bit more reps on a different, or maybe worse defensive line spot, or defensive line unit in the NFL. So never know what Thomas Booker can do. There's so many battles this year, Josh, that don't matter, which is a great thing. There have been so many times in history where it's this guy's battling this guy, and boy, let's hope one of them's good, or else we're in big trouble. Now it's this really promising young guy is battling this really promising young guy for your 4th spot on the defensive line. The one battle that has a little bit of concern, and I guess you could make the argument of 2. Corner, because you need one of Ringo or Dory Jackson, because behind that is kind of Eli Ricks. Where's the ghost of Eli Ricks from 2 years ago? And then obviously safety, but there's a lot of bodies at safety. But everywhere else, it's this promising wide receiver battling this promising wide receiver for your 5th wide receiver spot. And offensive line has guys that are 3rd or 3 or 4 rows deep that are going to be battling for the backup center job. And you're ooh, that'll be interesting. There's so many interesting battles that aren't going to matter in terms of wins and losses week 1, but they're going to matter in terms of having a breakout season, or maybe an injury happens and you got to fill in. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch. Running back's another great example there, because Saquon should get all the carries. Yes, but what happens if A.J. Dillon versus Will Shipley becomes a heated battle? Who wins that spot? Who gets those extra reps? We'll see.
Comes down to pass blocking, protecting the quarterback. That's
probably does.
Just keep an eye there for the preseason. Even if we don't have the best pass blockers in the O-line, if you got the running backs out there, who's protecting the quarterback? I don't know. I will say we kind of realized, we won the Super Bowl. You're coming off of that, so it's living in the golden era of sorts. I've seen that thrown out there, but the really fantastic time to be an Eagles fan. We all understand that. You see the team, the makeup of the team. structured to win now, but also in the long term. The haters, the doubters, the rivals hate it because they look at it and they're like, how do they continue to have these guys and then still have the longevity? Because you and I remember 2 years ago when we were talking about this and the Eagles came off the Super Bowl loss to the Chiefs of, oh, wait, hold on. You got the Cowboys fans and the Washington fans and Giants fans going, well, that's it. You guys kind of, mortgage the future to just try to win now, and you didn't do it, so you're going to lose for it. And it's like, well, not exactly. Take a look at the team now. You won the Super Bowl 2 years later, and they still have longevity with guys locked up. So it's a fantastic position to be in. And I'm right there with you. Like, there's not as much stress as you have a lot. Look around the league. Just go peruse around. You can watch it inside the NFL. You can watch, we'll reference it occasionally on ours. It's a little more Eagles focus. But just go look at some different teams. There's a lot more stress involved with what they're dealing with or the battles that they're figuring out. Or I mean, gosh, could you imagine if we're like, who's the quarterback going to be? Like, are we going to have a quarterback? Who's our left tackle going to be?
Literally.
How are we going to protect Jalen Hurts?
Literally.
Like, all these other problems that teams are dealing with that the Eagles go in and we're like, yeah, well, who's the wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 going to be? You know, that may be one of those. Okay. Right guard, but not even really as much. So it's kind of solidified as a Tyler Steen. Like, he needs to actually prove it, but he's probably going to be the guy. There's not a lot of positions, as you're talking about. I think cornerback, they've sold me enough on Kelee Ringo. It was even before then because we mentioned, like, look, if you didn't believe in him, you could have brought back Slay. I mean, you could have gotten something done there. So they didn't do that. They've had some other guys that they've basically passed on. Well, we don't know the full details of how much they may have tried to offer, what they were willing to. But they're basically saying, like, no, Kelee Ringo's our guy. So we just got to see it, live it out in training camp, in preseason, and then the safeties position. But, Andrew Mukuba, he's going to get some opportunities. You got guys like Sidney Brown who needs a little bit more reps. He's going to have to prove something iffy, I guess, in terms of where he stands now because he's not getting all those first-team reps, but it was just OTAs. Training camp will tell a bigger story. And then who knows? We continue to throw it out there, but if you're going to make a move, the very easiest one is to just pick up Justin Simmons on your way to camp and say, come on, because he's practically packed his bag and ready to join Fangio and the Eagles. So we'll see. But it's a fantastic time to be Eagles fan. I think we all realize that. Shout out to Matt with the 20 bomb. Let's go. It says, go Birds from work. You boys are the best at it.
Appreciate that. Appreciate everyone watching us from work. The whole goal of the afternoon streams because it means we only have something going on in the evening with our families. But we know a lot of you guys are at work right now. You're driving around. And so hopefully keeping you guys entertained for, an hour here in the afternoon. Anthony Perry dropped another 2 and said DB Cooper, as in DB Cooper, the skyjacker of legend. Yes, I don't know if you know who that is. I watched a documentary on it a long time ago as a kid. Scared me to death that there's going to be a DB Cooper on every single plane and we're ready to hijack it. But yes, never caught him. So there you go. DB
I did not.
Cooper makes
okay,
sense.
I did not catch it. I was like, defensive back Cooper. Okay.
Yeah, Cranky says Thomas and Josh
sense.
too young to remember the original DB Cooper. Yeah, because it was. I don't know if I was born yet. It was a long time ago. 1971. So obviously I was definitely not born. So we are definitely too young. Definitely too young. Even Josh, Josh a little older than me, not much.
Yes.
We're not close to 1971.
Totally.
Sorry,
yeah. Clearly that went right over. But
Way
I was
over
like, defensive back Cooper, which, I mean, it still makes sense, I guess, because we're talking about the Swiss Army knife and him being able to play the multiple positions. But then I was kind of like, it doesn't fully compute. So thank you. We appreciate all
Thank you for that.
the clarity. Much appreciated, as always. Okay, we got a couple more minutes here before we wrap. Last one that I was going to ask you, and then if there's any other questions, we may be able to get to those. But wide receiver, we mentioned it very briefly. Johnny Wilson, Aniyah Smith, Danny Gray, Terrace Marshall Jr. Like, it feels like those 4 are battling for probably 2 spots. Maybe they keep a 6th one, but it's really hard to say just from last year and kind of where the roster shakes out and how many you can keep. Do you have any feel? I mean, training camp will totally change it, I know, but just any feel as of right now for the 2 wide receivers, if you had to pick out of those 4 that are making the roster?
I mean, it feels like Johnny Wilson because he can block, but I do think Johnny Wilson has got to show he can catch as well. And I know Johnny Wilson had a very good training camp last year. He was catching a lot of passes. Very clearly a different Johnny Wilson catching the football wise in games versus in practice, because everybody in practice was like, this guy is massive. He has great range. I mean, he goes and snatches the football from everywhere. And now Tanner McKee is about as good of a backup quarterback as you can have. That's always an excuse for wide receivers in preseason games. They had bad quarterbacks, so they're not getting a lot of good throws. Wilson's going to be a training camp or a preseason game starter because A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith won't play. He'll be a 1 with the rest of the quote-unquote training camp ones, whoever they put out there, and Tanner McKee. So he's going to get legit throws his way, and has got to make the most of them. And the same can go for everybody else, but you really want to see Johnny Wilson take that next step because there's going to be this debate that grows. It's going to be Johnny Wilson versus the other 3, and it'll be, okay, well, Johnny's not catching the ball very well. If that continues, do we keep a pure pass blocking, or I should say run blocking receiver in Johnny Wilson, or take a chance on a Danny Gray, right? Maybe Danny Gray becomes the next, Swiss Army knife. Maybe Anais Smith is the gadget guy we've been looking for. Now, they'll probably keep Wilson plus another, but Terrence Marshall Jr. had a great OTA. What happens if Terrence Marshall Jr., also a big body guy, not as big, lights it up and does better? I do think the most pressure out of all those guys is on Johnny Wilson because they love him. He just had no catching ability last year. I mean, he did nothing except for that one catch for a touchdown in the Dallas Cowboy game. And so I'm pulling for him. I think it's going to be a fascinating battle to watch. They have great opportunities to learn behind Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, so they're getting coached properly. And because Tanner McKee and really Kyle McCord had a pretty good OTA period as well, they should have good enough throws to show us enough in 3 preseason games because they're going to play, 100% of the snaps on all those because you won't see A.J. or Devontae.
Yes, lots of opportunities. I was trying to find the card that I used previously, and I couldn't find the picture. But his rookie card was in the Super Bowl, and it was after he dropped the pass. That was one of the rookie cards, and it's like that's not the rookie card that you want to be on necessarily. But to your point earlier, and I did find at least one of the pictures from previous training camp, so I could throw this one on the screen. But this was the Johnny Wilson that we were all seeing and knowing last year. This is the high point Johnny Wilson. Jalen going to throw it up to him, and he's just going to beat your guy in the red zone. Like, if nothing else, that's what we were going into it, saying, like, maybe he doesn't get many targets until you get to the red zone. But in the red zone, you've literally got another tight end out there who can jump out of the gym and just throw it up to him, as you see on the picture. And this is what we kind of came to expect. But you're right. Once we get into the regular season, struggle, you can't make those plays. And if he cannot do that in training camp, and I think even more importantly, joint practice and preseason, then I could very realistically see a Danny Gray and or Terrace Marshall Jr. end up getting those positions because we've said it previously, but Jalen Hurts does not give praise to people just unwarranted. And for him to call out Terrace Marshall like he made some big plays for us, and then same thing for Danny Gray within being the practice squad of the number 1 receiver last year to help the team, and Nick Sirianni talking about him quite a bit, and then him being like, yeah, if I was here last year, I would have made the team. So there's a lot of confidence on his side. I don't know. It's interesting because Johnny Wilson's one of those that it does feel like if he were to get cut, he would get picked up very quickly because
100%.
He's a very
100%.
unique type player. So that's also got to be going in the back of the mind of Howie Roseman or anyone considering something like that is, well, if we cut Danny Gray, like we were able to pick up him, we were able to stash him on the practice squad most of the year, so maybe we could do that again. We don't necessarily have to because we saw that the league wasn't as interested in his ability because he had some opportunities in the past. So I don't know. I think that you're right. He's got a lot of pressure, but he's probably got equal amount of opportunities for the Eagles to say, Johnny, go win the job. Go win the job. You can stick around and you're good. Otherwise, then, we may look at Danny Gray. So we'll see.
Well, and again, we forget that Johnny Wilson's whole thing at FSU was like catch radius, high pointing the football, jump ball. He was a menace in college football. I mean, he was a really good receiver. It just hasn't, there's something about being on that football field on Sundays that's really been difficult, and it happens.
He reminds me of Braylon Edwards a little bit, Blast from the Past with Braylon Edwards, because and only really in this sense, because I remember there was a clip of Braylon Edwards getting asked, and it's like, oh, he makes all these crazy catches, right? And then he drops some of the easiest ones, and they even asked him, he's like, it's because I'm not expected to make those catches. It's the pressure of making the big highlight plays. There's no pressure. No one thinks you're going to make that catch, and then he goes and does it. Johnny Wilson to me seems like that same type of guy. You throw it up there, and you're like, no, he's not going to be able to get it, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, okay, how did he do that? But you throw him one right across the middle, wide open, no one around him, and it's like, boop, there you go. There's the drop. So hopefully a little bit less of those, but we'll see. Last super chat here before we wrap. Appreciate you guys. Aisha with a 10 bomb. Appreciate that. Says, I
Okay.
expect the passing game to look better this season just because of how much BS Hurts has heard this offseason. Super excited for the whole defense, especially Coop, Q, Zach, Jihaad, and Drew.
Tough super chat to end on because I'd like to go another hour here, but we're up against a meeting I got here in 5 minutes. But
Yes.
The Jalen Hurts hate, it just continues. And I was watching First Things First, a clip there, and some CBS writer had put on his top 10 list, and Hurts was off of the top 10 list. And they were arguing, of course, how can you put Justin Herbert ahead of Jalen Hurts? Herbert's done nothing in the playoffs. Jalen Hurts won the Super Bowl. And two of the three, I mean, it was Chris Broussard and Nick Wright who were arguing for Jalen Hurts. They were pro Jalen Hurts. And then it was this new guy, he's from Cleveland, I forget his name, but he was saying, listen, I know the stats and I know my eyes tell me that Jalen Hurts is worse. And it's getting crazy. It's really getting crazy. And then the funny thing is, you go like total touchdowns, because the whole knock is, well, Jalen Hurts only threw 18 touchdowns last year. He threw less than 4,000 yards passing. But as soon as you go total touchdowns, he's second in the league behind Josh Allen the past like 3 or 4 years. He has more than Mahomes. He has more than Joe Burrow because of how many rushing touchdowns he gets. And it's so wild to me that we go, well, a quarterback, they got to be able to pass better. It's like, does your quarterback score and win football games? Truly, that matters. Now, if you want to get technical and say which quarterback, pure passer is the best, Joe Burrow, right? No one's arguing that.
Sure.
And no one's really arguing that Hurts is in the top 4 because it very clearly is Mahomes in any order you want. Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, and Lamar Jackson. No Eagle fan is arguing that. But no Eagle fan is arguing that Justin Herbert at this point in his career, Trevor Lawrence also on that list, Dak Prescott, you go, Dak
CJ
Prescott?
Stroud,
Really?
Jordan Love,
CJ Stroud, even Jaden Daniels 1 year threw a lot of interceptions and got waxed in the postseason by Philadelphia's defense and didn't look that good. So it just, it's the offseason. They need, something to talk about. Jalen Hurts, very polarizing because then we talk about him. It's just crazy. It really is crazy.
Yeah. They have to have something to, get people fired up, get the views, get the clicks and everything. But it's just a nonstop run around with that. So
less than a month until
They'll
training
prove
camp,
wrong.
we can stop talking about this.
Yeah.
Less than a month. Less than
That's
a
something
month.
legit. So it is the
gracious.
long wait. It's the
long
very
wait.
slow burn until training camp. But we still got videos and content coming for you guys. So very much
Gotta feed
appreciated.
our families.
All the support, all the likes. Make sure to subscribe. Again, we'll always say this, but could not do without you guys. And most likely we'll be back on the Wednesday schedule. But again, with the summer and schedules and conflicts and everything else, sometimes different days. But we will still be doing the collabs and everything. So appreciate it as always. Thomas, is a blast. Let you get to your meeting. And until next time, guys, we'll see you. Go Birds.
Go Birds.